Do you have a dream that is a small seed of an idea and it's ready to sprout?
Or are you in the workplace weeds and you need to bloom in a new creative way?
Perhaps you're ready to embrace and grow a more vibrant, joyful, and authentic life. If you answered yes to any of these, you are ready to rebloom. Welcome to the podcast where we have enlightening chats with nature lovers, makers, and artisans as they share inspiring stories about pivoting to a heart-centered passion.
Hello, I'm Lori Siebert, and I am very curious to hear from friends and artisans about the creativity that blooms when you follow your heart.
And I'm Jamie Jameson, and I want to dig deep into the why behind each courageous leap of faith and walk through new heart-centered gardens.
Each episode of Rebloom will be an in-depth conversation with guests who, through self-discovery, shifted to share their passions with the world.
Get ready to find your creative joy as we plant the seeds for you to rebloom. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Rebloom. I'm here today with my co-host, Lori Siebert. Hi, Lori.
Hey, Jamie, we actually got to be together live last week, which was really fun.
We did. Lori and I live somewhat close to one another, but not close enough. And plus, Lori travels all over the world. And we are so excited today because we are going to take a little trip to France today, aren't we?
Yes, we are. We are going to interview or chat with two people that I've been creepy, but not creepy, more fangirl stalking, Sara and Steve from Manor and Maker. And they are a couple who lived in Canada and bought a chateau in France. And they are now hosting these amazing bespoke events and art retreats. And you know, I love an art retreat. So I can't wait to hear their story. So welcome, Sara and Steve.
Thank you so much. We're really excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to be with you guys.
So we got to hear all the details of, so I know, Steve, you're a graphic designer, and Sara, you sew, but I don't know more than that.
I was formerly in the intersection of HR and IT.
Oh, wow. Even
Before
a bigger leap.
Left turn at Albuquerque and decided to do this instead.
Oh, wow. Well, so take us back. We got to hear
take us
all.
to where you started, because you started in Canada, correct?
We did. We were both I was born and raised in Canada. Stephen was born in Wales.
Born in Wales, but raised in Canada. So yeah.
Exactly.
Both in Southern Ontario.
For the most part. We did, we both raised in relatively small towns, and then we did our requisite 20 years of corporate life in Toronto area. And then we ended up in a little town called Fergus, little of, being 20,000 people. And we're having a really great time there. And then decided that was really nice and we loved it. And we would move to France because reasons. Yeah. I think the seed for me for France was planted when I was 16 or so. I was really lucky. My parents were both involved in the airline industry, and we traveled extensively. And they did let us stay in a chateau when I was 16 years old. And that might plant a seed in a young woman's mind. I'm just saying.
That would plant a seed in mine.
I would think so.
Yeah.
And then we traveled quite a bit after that, Stephen and I. And every time we found ourselves coming back to France.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we both had the privilege of traveling quite a bit. But yeah, France, for some reason, always pulled at the heartstrings for us. Whenever we were traveling to Europe, we always seemed to figure out a way of spending a few days in Paris, if not further afield in France. So, but I think for this adventure, like it probably really started about 10 years ago. We were on a trip to Monaco.
Yeah.
Not to brag, but that was a great trip. But we were staying in some rural parts of France, sort of central Avignon kind of area, Beaune, and we had thought about moving to Europe for quite some time, but it was always a bit of a pipe dream. And then one day we started looking at real estate listings in that area, and realized that it was actually more affordable than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And I think
Interesting.
that started us going, okay, that's an interesting idea. And I think then when we started thinking more seriously about moving to Europe, Britain obviously was sort of our first thought, simply because of the language barrier.
And we are both British citizens, which is key to the later part of the story.
Exactly.
Okay.
But then as the world started to change a little bit and we started hearing more noise about Brexit happening in the UK and, that split happening, we started thinking about it again. It was like, I don't know if we wanted to be in the UK whilst that was happening.
Yeah.
And as I say, France just kept pulling us back. And I think we started looking then seriously at real estate in the area or in the country. And then Brexit happened. Yeah. Sorry, Brexit happened, and then COVID happened. and
then we're sitting around in the hot tub in the backyard one night, and Stephen asked,
Are you in Canada at this point, or are you in France? You're still in. So let me back up though. So you guys are you're in Canada, and you're considering all of this pre-COVID. So you're also this is happening pre-COVID.
Yes.
It was about 10 years before COVID. We looked for the first time, we looked seriously at moving to Europe, and then we kind of put that on the back burner. And then when the conflux of Brexit and COVID happened, that really got us thinking harder about it again.
Mm-hmm.
So let me double back. You guys were thinking about this for about 10 years, but then around 2019, 2020, particularly when everybody during COVID was sort of thinking about hunkering down, you guys are thinking about making this massive leap to France?
Well, those two things, the Brexit and the COVID thing, coincided in a way that it kind of forced our hand a little bit.
Okay.
There was stuff going on with our jobs that we weren't entirely satisfied with, which is normal for COVID times.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
that left us with some extra time, kind of going back to this idea of what's next in our lives. And then we got back to thinking about the real estate in France, and then we got shopping online.
Yeah.
Looking at properties again. And then Steve turned to me one night and said, the magic question that every girl wants to hear, which is, what would have to be true for us to buy a chateau in France?
What a nice
You are Prince Charming.
Right?
Yeah. You are Prince Charming, Steve. Oh,
complicated thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was, for us, it wasn't sort of escaping anything. We loved Canada very much. We liked our home. Yeah. For us, it was really, I think, like many people during that time, particularly beginning stages of COVID, you started to sort of look at your life and figure out where you wanted to be. And we sort of looked down 5-10 years down the road, and we realized that, that we loved our lives, but we could see where it was going to be. And it was going to be wonderful. Like we certainly had no problem with what we were doing, but it would have been similar. And I think we just decided at that point, let's turn the wheel and head left. And
let's shake it up.
Yeah, we've always sort of sought change in our lives. We're not very good at sitting. We tried sitting still and being normal, and we're not very good at it. So, yeah.
I love that about you too. I think that's why I've been fangirling. Like, to have the courage to just up and do this is so cool. So what I wonder is, when you were looking at properties, were you finding that most of them were going to need a ton of work, and the one that you ended up purchasing, did it require a lot of work? Meaning the building, like making sure it's...
It really ran the gamut. For the stuff that we were looking at, I mean, at the time, the price range was quite large. However, there was a lot available for a reasonable price. But obviously, until you're going to spend millions of dollars, you do end up with property that is going to require some work. So we did look at a few that needed a bit more upkeep, but generally at our age and after spending, 20 odd years in our career, we weren't interested in, having to fix a place before we could live in it. It needed to be relatively stable.
We'd also had lots of conversations about what we wanted to do and why we wanted to make this move, right? Like, we were really clear that we wanted to be more geeky, basically, if we can put it in a nutshell. And we wanted to bring more geeks together and create a safe place to geek out, right? You know, that feeling when you are with the people who love doing the weird specific thing that you love to do, and you just feel completely safe with them, and you can go, you know, I know you guys love fabric, and just like going through a fabric stash with somebody, like just that really safe feeling of being with somebody who geeks out with you. So we knew that was the goal for the property, and we knew that to get to that sooner, we didn't want to have to do a lot of reno.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously there was also the point that we needed to make money. So the property needed to be a business for us to make that work, which I think is also one of the reasons why we looked at Chateau property as opposed to, you know, simply a house that we could live in. It's because we needed something big enough to be able to house the dream and start the business that we were looking to start.
I totally get the being with your people and geeking out thing. I did a residency in France this year at Chateau Orcavaux, and there were 26 of us, and it was a mix of musicians, visual artists, and writers. And just being with that group of creative people, they were diverse in every way. It was just dreamy, and we bonded. We'll probably be lifelong friends. So I watch all the events that you're doing, and it would be so cool to be able to just put these events together that speak to all of the interests that you both have. So how does it work? Do people apply to have events at the Chateau, or do you curate some of them, or how does that work?
Right now, we are lucky enough that we're having a few artists reach out to us. And I and now we, there's a longer story there.
Back up to the longer story. Go ahead. You got married. Did you?
Stephen, when we first moved here, Stephen was still working full-time for a graphic design firm in Canada.
Okay.
So that meant that the majority of the business development work was my turn because I left my corporate job to do this work. So when I say it's both of us. Stephen's definitely doing some legwork into graphic design, but in terms of the business development, it's my work.
You know, I love that. And I think it's important to share with our listeners too, that, you know, when we rebloom, sometimes you can't jump in 100%. Sometimes you got to keep the day job. And it sounds like you guys balanced that. Stephen, you continued some of the work. So there was income coming in because there was obviously probably a pause in income between when you left Canada and when the Chateau actually got up and was fully running, correct?
Right.
Yeah. And we're still in that phase, right?
Yeah.
Like we're, like you don't start businesses and have them be successful overnight, or at least most people don't. So we're still in that business development phase.
Well, and the thing is, I mean, obviously, you know, we've been partners for 20 years and married for a few months now.
Congratulations.
Oh, you're newlyweds.
Newlyweds.
On June 7th, but
oh my gosh.
Please tell me you got married at the Chateau.
Of course.
Yeah.
It was really sweet, actually. The reason we had to get married is because France doesn't have the equivalent of common laws, and they also have some very strict inheritance tax laws. So basically, if we weren't legally married, then should heaven forfend one of us pass, the other person would have to pay a 50% inheritance tax on their half of the chateau.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
So the joke is that our accountant proposed and we said yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
So we did get married here, and we did a little walk down to the mairie because you have to get married at the mayor's office, so which is about 100 meters from here. So we walked down to the mayor's office, got married, walked back, had a little party with our friends.
And it was a great time.
How dreamy.
The 20 years that we've been together, though, we have actually swapped off a couple of times. Mm-hmm. You know, Sarah went on contract for a while after leaving a job, and I had a stable job, so we were able to get a mortgage for a house. Yeah. And then I went freelance in 2015, and Sarah had a stable job at that point, so she was able to carry on that stable money coming in. Yeah. So we've swapped off a few times in our relationship, and it's nice to have that partnership to be able to do that. This obviously is a much bigger jump. Yeah. I mean, yes, as you say, having the money coming in from my job, it was just enough to sort of keep us going. We knew that we didn't have to worry that, that the business had to get up and running, day one.
And the other thing was we didn't need to do major renovations, but we did need to do some cosmetic changes. Like the curtains that were hanging in the bedrooms were dark brown and had been there for at least 60 years and were pretty much, and I'm not exaggerating, dissolving on touch. So, I had to get my sewing machine out and we had to go buy some fabric and replace, and just sort of zhuzh up the rooms. Like the place was in pretty good nick, but it was just a little tired. It hadn't had any major renos or updates since the late 70s, early 80s, we think.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about, so you looked at multiple properties. What was special about this chateau and what tugged at your heart and made you purchase this one?
I think we did sort of the Goldilocks thing, where we saw one chateau. Like we had seen thousands online, but when we came over, we lived here for 2 months just to see whether we would like it, and that was in 2019, 2020.
That was 2020 because it was after what we all now know as the first wave. So we thought we thought the COVID thing was done, and we waited till the R values were the same, so we weren't putting anybody at more risk, and we took all the precautions, and we came over here, and we just followed all the COVID precautions while we were here because it was important. It's important to live in a place before you commit to moving to a place. It's much different than being a tourist, especially in France. So we needed to test that.
Yeah. But in that 2 months that we were living here, we decided one of the few things that we did do as far as getting out and exploring was to go and see some chateau that we had been eyeing online. And the first one we went to was enormous. Absolutely. It took us 3 hours to go around it, and that wasn't done.
Oh my gosh.
It was down there 2 years. And we left that one going, that's too much. That's way too big. And then we went and saw this other chateau that really got us thinking, but it was too small.
Oh, that is the Goldilocks thing.
It is.
Yeah.
So we were sort of, crossing things off our list or being able to sort of parse down what it is that we were looking for. And so we saw a couple more. I think we saw maybe 5 in person.
Yeah.
And this one in particular, so the day before we went back to Canada, or back to Paris in order to fly out the following day, we finally got an opportunity to see this chateau from the exterior. The real estate agent who was representing this house apparently retired sometime during COVID and didn't tell anybody. So the listing is very hard to come across.
For our agent. The listing agent is complicated.
Yeah. So our agent worked really hard to try and get a hold of the person, but wasn't able to before we went back to Canada. So we did see the exterior, and both of us at that point went, "Ooh, that feels about right." There were some horrible photographs on the listing that we were kind of vicariously living through for the time we were back in Canada.
Picture like 10 randomly taken grainy iPhone 1 photos.
I don't even think it was iPhone 1. I think it was Nokia.
Great listing.
Yeah. Well, it definitely deterred all the other people from buying it, so that's good too.
That's the thing. It was on the market for at least 3 years, as far as we know, maybe a bit longer.
Wow.
But when we did manage to get back to France after our hiatus in Canada, we needed to come back because of the visa issues. 2 weeks after our quarantine, we were staying with friends of ours. We quarantined for 2 weeks, and we called our agent and said we want to see it as soon as we can. So the day after our 2 weeks, we got down here and we finally came in for the first time. And I think both of us at that point just walked in and went, "Oh yeah, this just feels the right size, the right proportions." Everything just, even the neighborhood, the little village that it's in, all just felt like it
was meant to be.
Yeah,
it was meant to be. So tell us about the chateau. How many rooms is it? And tell us a little bit. It's beautiful. People, we will have links for everyone to see how gorgeous this is. But tell us a little bit about it.
It was sold as an 11-bedroom, which is a bit of a stretch. It's okay. Every chateau is unique. You can't really compare one to the other, but there are a couple of distinctive styles. And ours is like a big cube, so everything radiates off a large main room as you walk in, which some people actually call a foyer. But if you consider, sort of 800 square foot room of foyer.
Our grand hall.
Yeah, exactly.
We're still struggling for a name for it, frankly. It's just a living room, but
And then on the main floor, there's then a dining room, a small butler's pantry that still seats 10. So if you want to call that small, and then a kitchen, and then a bathroom, and then office, and then 2 cells. And then on the mezzanine level, because the great room is open through the next level up. Yeah. So then there's 5 bedrooms around the mezzanine level. So you go up the granite staircase, which is one of the features that I had hoped to have.
Yeah.
And there's the 5 guest bedrooms. And then you have to, I'm so sorry, go up the 16th century stone spiral staircase tower to get to the 3rd floor.
Whoa.
Where their 6 bedrooms are. And those bedrooms are best described as the staff rooms, which includes where Steve and I stay when we're running retreats.
Yeah.
In the old cinema, actually. They used to run a cinema here at one point.
Oh, wow.
For the town.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple of other bedrooms, one of which I also use as a sewing room. And then there is what we like to call the room of doom, which every chateau has. So the room that was damaged at some point when the roof leaked or there was a fire or whatever, every chateau has a little room of doom somewhere that needs some fixing up in a serious way. Yeah.
Oh, so I'm wondering, you have supported one another over the years, clearly. Mm-hmm. When you shared this idea with your family, what was the reaction?
I don't think they were surprised.
No.
We got a lot more, hey, that's cool, than, oh my God, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I think that was, they all kind of went, yeah, that sounds about right for you too.
Oh, I love that, because you had been traveling so much and you're both.
Like we said, we talked about moving to Europe before. So yeah.
I
love.
And we're
Go ahead,
definitely
Stephen.
change seekers as well. So, I think nobody was surprised. They may have been surprised that France was the location and the fact that we're buying a chateau, but I think there was more excitement than there was fear for.
I love that phrase, change seekers. That's a great phrase. I think I'm one of those.
Confused that like an introvert like me was going into hospitality, but they didn't say anything, so that was kind of.
Well, but I love the fact that you both have given each other permission over the years. And permission's probably not the word, but you've encouraged each other to seek different paths. So Stephen and Sarah, as you've said, one did one thing, another, you kind of flip-flopped back and forth, but also you didn't want to just stay stagnant. You really said, let's take this leap of faith, which is a huge leap of faith. All right. The one question I want to ask too, because I know, Stephen, you said you're from England. Do either of you... Wales, sorry, Wales. Did either of you, and obviously coming from Canada, did you speak French before you came to France?
I spoke French at probably about a B1 level, which means that I can hold conversations in a reasonable way, one-on-one, as long as they don't get too technical when we arrived. If you put me down at a table with a bunch of Parisians, I was lost. But in terms of being able to get things done that we needed to get done in our new community and have a little chit chat with the mayor and greet our new neighbors in a reasonable way, I could do all that. And for some reason, I'd always chosen to keep French up in my life, and it was mostly a personal choice. So on my commutes, I would listen to Radio Canada, or if I had a French-speaking colleague, I would take a chance to practice with them. I would listen to podcasts once in a while. It was just a choice I made through my life. I don't know that I ever fully intended, but again, maybe that goes back to that seed that was planted when I was 16.
Yeah.
Just the fact that we loved traveling to France, and I wanted to be able to communicate.
I definitely went the more Ontario, the standard Ontario route, which was, Canada does have the 2 official languages, French and English, and we are all taught French up until grade 10. And then most of us drop it. And that was me because I didn't feel it was necessary in my career. But yeah, it's for me, I'm still learning, trying to pick it up as fast as I can, because my job, being a full-time job, was still based in Toronto. Half my life was still in English, so haven't really had the time to concentrate on learning properly. I mean, I'm doing much better. My comprehension's much better, but it's definitely something that is a hurdle that needs to be, traversed before, and before we can both feel comfortable, in those conversations. I'm much better now. I'm at the stage now where I can sit there and listen and understand the conversation. It's jumping in is still the tricky bit. So we're working on that, but.
My neighbors tell me my French is getting much better. So
yeah.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. And so it was a challenge, but not a huge barrier. I mean, because you did have some background in it. Now, are your guests that are coming to the chateau, are they predominantly French, or are they English, or from?
It's a mix.
Where are they from?
I would say Canadians and Americans, but we've also had people from Britain. We've had people from Australia. We've had a client who came from China. So that was lovely. Some of them with a smattering of French that they want to practice, and others that are just here for the art experience. Yeah.
But we do have, next year we are running a retreat for Canadians who are trying to learn French. It's
not just Canadians. It's
right. Sorry. Yeah. Anybody who wants to learn.
We're calling it the French immersion. So it's language, cuisine, and culture. Yeah.
So I did a dive into your website and saw there's quite a variety of different offerings. And so are you coming up with some of those themes, or are people pitching you different themes? Are you mostly art related in your retreat?
We want to stick mainly to creativity and French themes. Yeah. We've had a couple of other proposals that I just didn't feel like they were a great match for us yet. Things more along the wellness and spirituality aren't really areas that we personally connect with that much, whereas art and creativity is more our thing. So we're kind of sticking on that, but mostly it's been things that people have pitched to us, which has been delightful.
Well, and as a branding expert,
yes.
Obviously we want to make sure that, as Sarah said, we want to stick on brand. So the maker side of our Manor and Maker really is about, people coming together and creating stuff. But that is a broad brush anyway. I mean, we have, obviously there's traditional painters, but we've done silk painting. We've got an opera one coming up next year. We've got, writers that are coming. We had a creator retreat a month ago that had Instagram and TikTok personalities that came and just created content here for a week, which was a whole lot of fun.
Photography and small films and things like that. That was really cool.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to Johanna's retreat next year, which is it's painting with gilding, texture, tone, and color.
I saw that one.
Building your skill set. And I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I love that one. So are you able to participate in any of these, or are you hustling, taking care of everyone?
Mostly it's hustle, but Stephen did get into silk painting.
I did. So I'm an artist as well. I'm a painter.
I knew that.
So I've been a painter most of my life, quite frankly, as well as the graphic design. But yeah, we had Renee Shoemaker here, who's a phenomenal painter. From Georgia, I think originally.
Yeah.
From Athens. Anyway, she was
Athens, Georgia, in the U.S., not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Athens, Greece.
And so she was doing silk painting, quite accomplished herself. And then one day I said, can I jump in? And I had a lot of fun. Actually, it was a different medium for me. Yeah. Obviously something new, but color is color, paintbrushes are paintbrushes. So I figured give it a shot. And I had a great time. It's fun. I think one of the things that we really enjoy about running these retreats is that we do get involved with everybody. We may not necessarily be creating with them or, creating an art piece, but just enjoying their enjoyment of what they're doing, and being excited for them and, really seeing that sort of light that you see in people when they try something for the first time or they've achieved something new that they're really excited about. We absolutely adore that bit.
Exactly. It's just everything. When you walk into the studio and they're just in the middle of it and you can just see everybody sort of glowing with creativity, and it just, honestly, it makes me a little verklempt. Like it's just, it's so such a lovely feeling. Yeah,
I get that because I teach as well, and I've been teaching at retreats for years. And yeah, when I watch someone from the beginning, sometimes they'll say, well, I'm not an artist, and they're really nervous. And then by the end, they surprise themselves with what they were able to make. It just, it lights me up, and being with kindred spirits, there's just nothing like that.
We had a wonderful group with us, end of last year, beginning of this year, I can't remember. Anyway, there was people there were a few of them were people coming out of their corporate lives and sort of looking for creative outlets in what we're calling the afternoon of their lives.
Or the apéro.
Or the rebloom. Or the rebloom.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can see them with that corporate mindset when they start doing creative stuff. It's that, am I doing this right? Or, should I be doing this? And as soon as you start to realize that you can break them of that and go, no, yes, that mistake may have happened, but look how great it looks, that, and wow, what a difference. Yeah, I love that bit.
Well, it's a huge difference. And that's one of the reasons that we want to do this podcast, is because we believe so much in folks like yourself who had a corporate life and pivoted. Not everybody's buying chateaus in France, although that would be amazing. My question is, when you have seen these people come through, so you open your doors, and much like this group that you were just talking about, Stephen, what gifts have they brought to you? What maybe expected or unexpected gifts have they brought to you, and have you seen since you started these retreats?
I think, you sort of, it's the experience of working with different people all the time and being able to sort of bend to them a little bit or understand, where they're coming from. I think one of the things that we really enjoy is when you have a group of people who arrive at your doorstep for the first time and they don't know each other. It's that ability to kind of go, okay, come on, everybody come in, grab a glass of champagne. Let's find out everybody's story. Maybe somebody over here needs a little more conversation. Maybe somebody over there would require just a little more alone time, and just trying to figure out what that group dynamic is. I mean, both Sarah and I in our corporate world have run teams. Sarah's team is much larger than mine, but I've been a creative director and worked with small teams, and it's, you sort of get that sixth sense of, okay, this is how it's feeling. And the wonderful thing is that I think it's the first 24 hours we're really helping to try and get the group to gel. And I think with most of our groups that we've had, after that 24 hours, it's self-perpetuating. And it's just so much fun to be able to see them, interact with each other. Mm-hmm. And then what we get back from them really is looking at the release and the comfort level that they have. And they suddenly start opening themselves up, whether it's conversationally, whether it's creatively, but, and it's just so much fun being a part of that. And the fact that we have had a number of our participants at the end of, the time with us, not wanting to leave, practically in tears because they're like, this was the best thing ever, or actually in tears.
Yeah.
It's, that tells us that we're doing something right.
We're already having repeat guests. Like we've got a lovely woman named Penny who's already been twice, and she's trying to figure out how to get back a third time already. Like, she's just amazing. And Ella, who's going to come for the third writing season, which is, third of our 3 writing seasons. She's coming back again. And getting the creative ideas back from guests are just amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What I think is so cool is you're creating really, really precious memories for people. I mean, not everyone gets to go to a chateau in France and make art. And I know for myself, getting to do that it's I feel so grateful and so blessed. So I'm sure the people that come to you, they go around feeling that way. You not only are immersed in France, in beauty, but you're also meeting people that will become possibly lifelong friends. Definitely. That really get you.
It's also that slow experiential travel that people are craving right now, right? Where they don't necessarily want to go with your 50 million new best friends and go and see the same highlights that are available anywhere online. They're seeking these really bespoke experiences, right? You want something like, each of our retreats is one of a kind. We'll never be able to replicate any retreat exactly, even if we have the same hosts back again, because you're going to have a different set of guests that are going to jive in a different way and going to create different things. So each experience is going to be bespoke, and people can leave with that knowledge that they've had this really special, individualized experience, right?
And we set up a WhatsApp group every time we have a group come with us, a unique group with the people that attended, and we have seen a year after our one retreat, and they're still communicating with each other. Mm-hmm. And, or there's one that was doing journaling, and they're still showing their sketches and their journaling, every week or every couple of days. And that's just awesome. As you say, it builds that community, and these people are going to be lifelong friends, and they're going to be like, we always look at them and say, okay, you're now part of the Chateau family. You're the Saint-Germain-des-Pre family, right? Yeah. That's sort of our group now, right? And hopefully as that grows and as that builds, obviously it's going to help our business, but on top of that, it builds this wonderful community of people who, as you say, had that special experience, and hopefully then extend that into the rest of their lives as well. And, and we're always here if they need to come and fill it up again, right? That's the way I look at it.
Let's take a quick minute and thank our amazing sponsors. Our podcast is proudly brought to you today by Jet Creative and Urban Stems. Jet Creative is a women-owned marketing firm committed to community and empowerment since 2013. Are you ready to rebloom and build a website or start a podcast? Visit jetcreative.com/podcast to kickstart your journey. They will help you bloom in ways you never imagined. And bonus, our listeners get an exclusive discount when you mention Rebloom. And a huge thanks to Urban Stems, your go-to and our go-to source for fresh, gorgeous bouquets and gifts delivered coast to coast. Use Bloom Big 20 and save 20% on your next order. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Rebloom Podcast. Thanks to our sponsors, and thanks to you for joining us today. You guys are creative connectors, and you're helping everyone to bloom and even to rebloom. I mean, and that leap of faith that you took, and I love that, you needed to grow, but you're helping everyone else to find that growth too. And that is so special. And you're right. People want this immersive. They want quality. I think that's the thing that we learned during COVID is we want quality. We want quality experiences.
Yes. Well, and you bring up the point about taking that leap of faith. And I think one of the things that we found really interesting is, obviously we jumped out of the rails, if you will, from our corporate lives and doing the standard thing. But what we discovered when we moved here is we suddenly made connections with a whole group of new people. And so not only are we bringing people together, but we have discovered that ourselves. We're part of this community of Chateau owners that we sort of got plugged into, and, that network just keeps growing. I mean, when we had our wedding in June, part of my speech when I was looking down at, or looking across everybody that was with us, was like, the majority of those people we didn't know 3 years ago, but they're now our close. And that's, not that we didn't have friends back in North America, but of course, them traveling over here for the wedding was an issue. So, but it's really exciting that we've landed in a place where we feel that, I think this really speaks to the fact that we're heading in the right direction, that we're doing the right thing, because we're finding our right people. Because not only are we providing a community for others, we have found our community as well. Of people who are doing similar things, Chateau owners are, doing wild and crazy stuff, and got out of the norm and realized, okay, it's okay. There are other things outside of sort of that basic straight line that society tells us that we're supposed to be in.
And the other thing I would add to that is that this community that we found, in terms of that major shift from corporate thinking, the community that we have is collaborative, not competitive.
Love it.
Right? Mm-hmm. Like in corporate life, you're taught everything is kind of based on competition. Whereas in this new life, in this creative life, everything is collaborative. So even our Chateau friends that we talk to a lot, and it's not a cliquey thing, it's because we're in the same area together. We have the same similar problems that, come with owning properties that are several hundred years old. But our friends over at Puy Vidal, for example, are running almost the same business with us, and we just collaborate with them because the slice of pie that we're looking from the tourism business, there's 20 million people that come to France every year. If we were to max out our retreats, we might be looking at 300 of those people out of 20 million. And if our friends at Puy Vidal want to do the same thing, that's 300. Now we got 600 people out of 20 million. Like, we think there's enough.
There's plenty. Yeah.
There's lots of people who want these experiences, and it's just wonderful to be collaborative and not competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So Sarah, I'm curious about your background because Stephen, it sounds like you grew up maybe painting and doing artistic things.
Good, yeah.
So Sarah, as a young girl, were you also creative and then went into the IT path? I'm just curious because now you're immersed in the creative world.
Yeah, this is the part where if anybody's surprised about anything, it's this where I landed. I think I remember when I was visiting the Royal Ontario Museum, the ROM, when I was about 6 years old, I think the docent asked us all what we wanted to be. And, everybody else is like fireman and ballerina and whatever. And then there's me and I'm like paleontologist. So I've always been science and mathy and very analytical. I like numbers. I like process. I like organizing. So I wouldn't have called that particularly creative. But what that did lead me to was sewing, which is an incremental skill building practice. So you can start really basic, getting 2 pieces of material to hold together, in whatever way possible. And then you just keep building and building your skills. And then you realize it's really quite mathematical, and that's a lot of fun for me. But once you get past that part, then you realize the breadth of opportunity with fabrics and notions and trims and varying, taking your basis of knowledge and adding variation onto that. And so somehow through that rabbit hole of sewing, I discovered I was creative. Whereas I was one of those people that always said, oh, I'm not creative, as if any human ever born isn't creative. Every human is. We live 30 minutes from the caves of Lascaux, which have 17,000-year-old cave paintings in them. And it's like the fundamental proof that every human ever born was creative. And you're just kidding yourself if you're telling yourself you're not. So that was my getting into creativity. And now I'm into historical costuming like nobody's business. I'm not going to say terrible at it because I'm not terrible at it, but I'm an enthusiastic amateur. That's where I put myself. Any sewers out there would offer some constructive criticism that I would find very welcoming, but also I really love doing it. And we wore our costumes out to Venice and we wore them for our wedding.
Yeah, honestly.
I love that.
And these are what you made?
Yeah.
They're what you made?
What we got married in was 2 costumes that Sarah had hand sewn for us. And they're
ridiculous.
What time frame? 17th century?
Yeah. Well, 18th century.
Oh my gosh.
I love that.
Cool. I don't know. I was going to say, it's interesting that you, first of all, I love that path. I love the building. I love, and one of the things that we find with many of our guests is that sometimes people say no to them. And that no shuts, well, they did, but often it's the people who just ignore the no and the word no, and they just keep going. And I love the fact that you started and you let it build and you continue to let it build. And that's incredible. I was going to say though, I watched Outlander and while it was a great series, the costumes in there, I was so intrigued by the beauty of the work that was done on those costumes. And so I love that that's a path that you went down. That's cool.
It ties in so well to the manor.
Yes,
at
exactly.
Orcavo, they have a room in the basement that's a costume room. So you can go down there and, some of us came to dinner in costume a few of the nights, and we're
working towards that. I would love to have that as an opportunity. We just built a tickle trunk or a costume, like basically a costume accessory trunk for our guests to play around with. So it's got some masks and a sword and some things like that in it.
Oh, so fun.
That is so cool. I want to ask one question then, Sarah. You had said that you're an introvert, and I can tell that, it's like, how is being in the hospitality industry? How does that work for an introvert? That's got to be tough.
It is and it isn't. It's about understanding introversion and extroversion differently, right? So basically, extroverts get their energy from being around people. Introverts get their energy from recharging alone, right?
Yes.
It's not a matter of shyness. It's not a matter of whether you can interact with people or not. It's just where you go to recharge. So as an introvert in hospitality, I actually love these small group conversations that we're having. That is my happy place. I've never loved big crowds. I'm not one to go to big parties or, big concerts or things like that. I find those a little overwhelming. But these small group conversations with people who are really interested in a particular topic, whatever it is, again, it goes back to that geekiness. I love it when people are geeky.
Yes.
And I love getting into geeky conversations. We had a couple here, and the gentleman was really into Sasquatch. And I'm like, if you are into Sasquatch and you can bring me interesting things about Sasquatch, I am here for you. I will listen and we can have a great conversation, right? Like, if that's your geeky thing, we're here for it. Mm-hmm. And so those small conversations, those small group conversations are really energizing for me. And then I go off and have a little, cup of tea on my own, and they go back to the studio, and it's great. I love
that's
that.
How it works for an introvert. And thank you for sharing that, because many of our listeners are introverts, and I think they're even afraid to take that leap of faith to go on a retreat. And I really wanted you to speak to that, because I think that if they want to explore their creativity, it's looking for these beautiful bespoke opportunities that are smaller, that you're not going to feel as afraid. You're going to feel that you can do it and you can be creative. I love that.
And you're with your people. Find a retreat.
Yes.
Even if it's not ours, heaven forfend. Yeah. But find one that has your people in it, and you will be amazed at just how much that uplifts you, right? Like, absolutely. Often for introverts, it's just draining to be around people that just aren't like them, right? So if you can find the retreat that has your people in it that are geeking out about the same things, and it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yay and yay.
I think just adding to that, one of the things that when we started thinking about how we wanted to set up this business, the one thing that we wanted to make sure was this is a safe space. Mm-hmm. For anybody to, like, if you want to explore whatever it is you want to explore, go for it. We're here for you. We're here to, anything but hate, we're pretty much open to, right? Yep. Like,
I think,
and that's what we want the Chateau generally to be. We want it to be a place where people can come together, have a great time, great food. Our chefs are really amazing, but also just to feel very comfortable and very, very, relaxed here. They can, if they want to go and sit in their room and be comfortable, that's fine. Mm-hmm. If they want to come down and party, that's fine too. It's all about making sure that each individual feels their comfort here, hopefully as a group, but also they need to feel comfortable in themselves and that they're in a place that they can be who they want to be.
So I have a geeky question. So I watched Escape to the Chateau, and when she goes up in that attic or in those outbuildings and have all that stuff that was left behind, did you discover any of that in your rooms, like old fabric, old wallpaper, any of that?
Sadly, no. Most of the chateau had been emptied. We have not actually fully explored the attics yet.
Sure.
Because we're chicken.
I have no problem going up into there. It's the ladder that's up there that I am not stepping on.
Yeah.
I need to get the ladder up there to do it.
Yeah. We do have photos from a lady who lived here until 1960. So we have some idea of what was here previously, which tells us that not a lot has been altered, which is amazing. And then, like I said, what was there before was dissolving, the old curtains on the windows and things like that. So,
but when we moved in, one of the interesting things, because we obviously, as I say, we're sort of connected to a lot of other chateau owners who have found those wonderful treasures. The previous owners of our chateau, it was actually a holiday home for them. And they actually basically got rid of all of the furniture except for about 5 pieces that we purchased off them. So our exploration actually has been to go to the brocants or antiques fairs, antique shops, and fill this place. So we've literally furnished every room in here.
Wow.
That has to be fun.
Yeah.
And it is. It's, I sort of equate it to, it's a giant dollhouse that we get to move the furniture around in. And, yes, I am okay. I am a 49-year-old man who's happy to play a dollhouse. It's a good thing.
It's another thing that you guys have touched on in your podcast is that men can be creative too.
Yeah.
Right? Like we were so lucky at the Silk Retreat that it was a split of men and women in the participants. And it was just so awesome to see the guys unleashing their creativity as well. Again, in a safe space that they're not going to be made fun of for whatever stupid reason, right? Like it's just wonderful.
Yeah, I just had a husband and wife come together. I taught in Italy, and they were creating side by side. And I don't have a lot of men come, which I really liked that. And he was so creative, and watching their dynamic, and I loved it. So hopefully more men will come in the future. We did have some husbands come too, which was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Well, we had a moment where the creator retreat, we had a costumer bring a bunch of fabulous costumes that the ladies were dressing up in and taking photo shoots in. And I specifically had Sara film me for our vlog, grabbing these clothes and going, you know what? It's okay. I love this beautiful fabric. How can you not appreciate the beauty of this fabric, the lace that was on there,
the workmanship that went into it, right?
I mean, and that is okay. There is nothing wrong with that. Like you do not have to be a specific, whatever stereotype you need to be. Just enjoy it, right?
Yeah, there was a woman at Orcavo who she was, I'm not sure what her full business is, but she would dress herself every day in this crazy makeup and full dress, and she did film and still photography, and she would come to the meals dressed like that. She was so beautiful, and it was so fun to see that happen every night. We'd wonder, what's she going to be dressed like tonight?
Yeah. Well, it's so fun, and thank you, Sara, for bringing that up too, because you're right. Having men explore their creative side is hugely important. I think that oftentimes we have folks that are, very heavy into a corporate life or their professional life, and I think we all need to just we need to bring that creativity into our life, whether it's cooking, whether it's just getting out into nature, it's fly fishing, whether it's being creative and just carving out just a smidgen of time for ourselves.
And I think it's just so, people forget what a corporate skill creativity is.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're stuck doing the same patterns over and over and over again, you need to do something that shakes you out of those patterns to bring a little something new, something innovative to your job, right? Like getting out and doing creative exercises is a creative skill. It's a corporate skill that you need to practice.
100%. So you've made this leap of faith. Now we're in 2024, entering into 2025. Tell us about what the Chateau looks like today as far as retreats and how many you're holding, and what does it look like today?
Well, we've shifted up the bedrooms into what I like to call version 1.5. So I'm happy with where they are now, and we get a few little oohs and ahs as people come into the bedrooms, which is great. But we're not doing this with buying a Chateau is an excellent, terrible decision.
Yes,
it's a terrible financial decision. It's an excellent, terrible decision, but don't expect to make tons of money. So you have to come in with the resources, and we're taking financial risks to do this. So, we'll take what the business gives us and put it back into the Chateau. And I would love to get the bedrooms up to that full, totally romantic bed crowns, lots of fabric, lots of textures, and more furniture. And, they're sort of halfway there. And I'd love to do the next level up, which is a little over the top, as Chateau should be.
Yeah. But the business is looking...
It's looking great.
Yeah. I mean, this is really only our second full year of running the retreat business.
Yeah.
Sara, I will give her all the credit in the world. She's done an amazing job of building the platform on which the plan is being built. But I think now that we've had a bit more exposure to this, we are feeling more comfortable, and we're starting to find more people who are coming into us. So next year, I think we've got at least 10 different retreats, with a couple more that we're hoping to work with.
Yeah.
And it's now starting to feel like, okay, people are finding us. We've got people who are interested in running retreats with us. We just need to keep filling it with with guests.
Yeah.
But even that, we've had nothing but amazing guests that have come here, and they've all said, we're going to tell everybody we know about this. And, so hopefully it started to perpetuate and it'll just grow from here. I mean, we're doing everything we can on our social media side of things. We have a YouTube channel as well, Manor and Maker. and we're trying to promote everything that we're doing as much as possible on those those venues. But yeah, it's looking good at the moment.
We're also trying to connect more with the local community, because really Chateau should be in service to their community. And this Chateau in particular really wasn't. It was we're in a town of 500 people, and we are in the town of 500 people physically. And this Chateau was really disconnected from that for a while.
So as you're talking about where you're located too, where are you located in France? Because France is a very big country. So
yes.
Yeah, tell us where you're located in France.
So we are in the town of Saint-Germain-des-Pre, which some people will know as an expensive suburb of Paris as well. But we are in the department of Dordogne, or Dordogne, or Dordogne, as some people pronounce it. And we're about 2 hours.
I never know how to say that.
And we're about 2 hours due east of Bordeaux. So we're getting towards it's what they call the Southwest region. And we are definitely in the land of what they call 1001 Chateau. Mm-hmm. We're in the land of Eleanor of Aquitaine. We're in the land of, so like I said, cave drawings that are 17,000 years old. There's just so much deep history here. Rolling tills. There's lots of wine. Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
We're also the region we're also in is also named the Périgord, which is much more of a culinary sort of thing. So very famous for its duck, truffles, walnuts, apples. This is kind of a bit of the breadbasket of France as well. So if you're getting truffles, they're usually called the Perigordian black or the Perigordian white, and those are the sort of standard truffles, and that's the region that we're in.
Yeah, we can go in December, we can go to the farmer's market 5 kilometers away and buy truffles directly from the farmer. Mm-hmm. And those are the same ones that the Paris chefs are like competing over.
Yeah.
And those are worth about €800 a kilo. That's at the farmer's market. And then they mark that out for Paris. It's crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. You had us at Chateau, but I definitely think the truffle, Lori and I just met in New York City, and we had a truffle pasta that we're still dreaming about. Lori, we're going to France. We're going to France.
Yeah. Very welcome.
You two have been an absolute delight. What a journey you have been on. We love our guests to also leave. We love that you to leave our listeners, our guests, let me get that out, with a little advice. And boy, this has been a big journey for you, but what advice would you like to leave our listeners with today?
It's never too late to be creative.
Yeah.
If you're telling yourself, I'm going to be really bold and put it out there. If you're telling yourself you're not creative, you're wrong. You just need to figure out what your path to creativity is.
Yeah, I would concur with that for sure. I've had the advantage of being creative most of my life, and being able to see how people can, jump into something and come up with something really fascinating, really interesting, I think is an amazing skill. And it's a dopamine hit. It's an excitement, and I think everybody needs to do it, because let's face it, the world can be a scary place sometimes. But having that ability to get away and do something creative, just get into your own head and play, I think that is worth everything.
Yeah.
Totally agree with everything you've said in this conversation. I've just been nodding my head like,
yes.
If we had video, you would see my head bobbing up and down.
I know. And if you saw me, I'm probably looking for a flight to France, because I definitely, amazing. Thank you both so much for sharing your story with us today. I know our listeners, I hope, are going to feel inspired, whether you're an extrovert, whether you're an introvert. We all need to be creative and to find that safe, creative space, whether you are just so you can be with your people. And yes, there are beautiful opportunities to go to France, and I think we need to go to France, but there are also those opportunities even within your own community, and to find those and to honor your creative spirit.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Hear, hear.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us. It's a real lovely chat.
Yeah.
Thanks, you too. You're wonderful. Wow, Jamie. So the whole time they're talking, I'm thinking, how can I go and be an apprentice there? How can I go and volunteer and maybe be a concierge, or I don't know. I'm just blown away by people who make these kinds of decisions, because it would certainly be a dream of mine to do something like that, but it's not going to be in the cards for me. But just seeing other people do it and hear their story, I was like in tears a few times, because it just must be so exciting to host these retreats and be with people that are really interesting and creative and want to spend time together and want to learn and want to have geeky conversations. Just all of that seems so dreamy to me.
Well, I would agree. And, it's interesting. You're more of an introvert. I'm more of an extrovert. And I love being around people, and to just have those intimate opportunities where you can really get to know someone and also be creative. They've created a dream space. And I love that they're also sticking to a brand. They're sticking to keeping things small, they're intimate, and really the attention to detail and making it a beautiful experience for their guests. As a photographer, I want to go there tomorrow. I think it would be just such a treat to be there and to experience it. And like you, I was trying to think, how can I get myself over there too? Again, we need to pack up the suitcases, Lori. We're off on a rebloom retreat.
Yeah, the rebloom tour. Yeah.
We are. Well, thank you everyone for joining us again. And we hope that you found inspiration in today's podcast. Peace, love, and rebloom. Life is too short not to follow your passions. So go out there and let your heart plant you where you are meant to be and grow your joy.
We will be right here sharing more incredible stories of reinvention with you. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode of Rebloom.
Until next time, I'm Jamie Jameson.
And I'm Lori Siebert.
Peace, love, and rebloom, dear friends.